Hi everybody, welcome back to Capricorn Radio and welcome to Capricorn TV live stream today. I am super excited about today's returning guest. We're going to be speaking to William Henry and I have my lovely co-host from Hawaii on the call. Hi Susan, welcome to the show.
Aloha. It's nice to be here with both of you today.
Great to have you back again. But just before I bring William on, I just want to I want to give a little short bio on William before I don't want to get complacent with my returning guests. William Henry, an investigative mythologist and author of over 10 books now on ancient mythology and neo-archaeology, and it has a Stargaze twist to them, applying the latest theories in science and consciousness to ancient myths and the gates of the illumined gods, including Sumerian, Egyptian and Holy Grail gateway myths. He hopes to uncover the secrets of the guarded by such groups as the Illuminati. His latest book, Oracle of the Illuminati, I think that's an old one, states that we are on the verge of rediscovering the sacred science of creating peace on Earth. And I've often heard William referred to as a futurist as well. So without further ado, let's bring on today's guest. Hi William, you're very welcome back to the show.
Oh, thrilled to be back. Thank you, James. Thank you, Susan. It's nice to see both of you.
Wow. We have a slight delay, William, but great to have you back again. I guess what's new for you, William? I know you've gone into a new season of Ancient Aliens. Let's talk about maybe that just as to launch into this. What we got to look forward to and how far into the season are you?
Oh, great. Yeah, this is season 8, of course. This is my, I think, 5th season now on the show, 4th or 5th. I've contributed a couple storylines this year. Seems like every year they're able to incorporate maybe 4 or 5 of my research angles into the show, and I always really appreciate that. So this year, one of the shows is going to focus on, well, actually, several shows focus on my stories, but one in particular is the Osiris device from ancient Abydos, Egypt. This is the incredible forerunner, if not the prototype, for the biblical Ark of the Covenant. It's seen at Abydos, fully assembled, where they refer to it as the tower, and make a connection between this tower and the resurrection of Osiris. So you can imagine that with these two pieces of data put together, you're starting to think Tower of Babel, Stargate Tower, Ascension Tower, and all of that definitely comes into play with the Osiris device. And so Ancient Aliens mentioned it in season 7 and now have come back. They hoped to send me to Egypt back in the spring, but they weren't able to get permissions in time. The Egyptian government said, yeah, sure, come over and do this, but it's going to take many months for us to follow through with the paperwork. So we didn't actually get to make the trip this year, but fingers crossed, if there's a season 9, hopefully I'll get to go on the ground with Ancient Aliens to Abydos and really roll out this incredible story. No other researchers have touched this. For some reason, they just, they're preoccupied with other things. They're trying to date the stones, or they're trying to prove Atlantis. They're trying to make an Orion connection. They're trying to do all kinds of other things, and you can't see everything or know everything in Egypt. And for some reason, I found this little niche with this Osiris device, and I'm really happy that Ancient Aliens is starting to shine some light on it.
Oh, for sure, William. I made it to the Von Daniken conference. I got to meet Giorgio and a lot of the crew, and great to see the intrigue and the interest into this subject matter. It just keeps on going, and it's such a fascinating subject matter. And Giorgio, he's still blown away by the success of this.
It's endless.
It's endless. Did you ever envisage the success, William?
Well, I mean, you're right. The show is a phenomena in that regard, and I think what they've learned is that there's a really wide audience that has an almost insatiable appetite for this. I bet people have watched many of the episodes many times. They're because you can't absorb it all in one sitting. And your perspective changes, so you come back and you revisit, you learn more, and you come back and you think, well, maybe some of this is a little too far-fetched, but others of it is right on target. And in my view, what I've observed as a viewer of the show is that the quality of the stories just keeps improving. The production, they keep getting better and better. witnesses, if you will, that can substantiate the case. So it's no longer just about, are there flying saucers and were there extraterrestrials? I think we're way beyond that. And now we're trying to figure out, well, where do they fit in our lives? And that to me is the ultimate and really big question, and is the kind of, people call me the spiritual voice of ancient aliens, because many of the other presenters don't believe in anything to do with spirituality whatsoever. All of this is hardware. It's flying saucers, it's aliens with technology. There is nothing spiritual about this, and don't get your hair all bent out of shape thinking that there is, because there's nothing spiritual about this. I mean, so I come on and say, it's all spiritual. It's all spiritual. So that's,
I just want to jump in here. Yet there's a tendency to believe that there's something negative about it, about perhaps the contact experience, which in some ways there's got to be some emotional attachment or some spirituality, as it relates to that, because you see there can be a bend or a twist on that, right?
Absolutely. And, it's a buffet, if you will. Of you can have whatever you want at the ancient alien buffet. You've got the paranoids, you've got the conspiracy theorists, you've got the hardware, the technology people, and they're all looking at the same evidence but coming to different conclusions. And so, that tells me we've got to keep looking.
Wow. Yeah. For me, William, I think that's the one thing that attracts me to your research and your work more than anybody, especially from the Ancient Aliens crew. But I think you stand out like that, and that's that the spirituality question isn't addressed by many people. I mean, you bind the whole subject matter. I'm talking mythology, extraterrestrial phenomena, history and mystery. If you do not address the spirituality question, the rest of it is all compartmentalized. But I think, and I'm going to let Susan jump in, is that this spirituality is the quest for this spiritual sense of it all is the one thing that binds it all together.
I totally agree. I mean, this is, why did the gods come here? Why did these extraterrestrials come here? We're way beyond the gold hypothesis now. I think even Giorgio, I saw him recently, he's moved away from that. And he was I think at one time a real proponent of Sitchin's theory that the Anunnaki came here to mine gold, yada, 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 which is, there's no basis for that whatsoever. You might as well be saying they came here for Krispy Kreme donuts, because there's as much evidence for both statements, right? So if they're not here for material items, then what are they here for? And the answer that I've always operated on, or the perspective I've come to since the very beginning, I apologize for that phone, is that they were here for spiritual reasons. Their interest is more about souls than it is about gold or other materialistic concerns. And so I just really have to make that my center, and I ask people that start researching this to at least explore that as a possibility, and then contemplate that in relation to what we see with all these reports today about extraterrestrials and secret space programs and slave races and all this kind of thing. I just can't quite reconcile it, because to me, by the time we're ready, and we're very close to being able to colonize other worlds, we hope we've come to the realization that we have to leave the lower and baser parts of our humanity behind in order to cross the barrier of space. We're not going to be weaponizing space. We're not going to be out there colonizing and enslaving other worlds, but yet this is the story that comes up over and over again about why extraterrestrials are here, and I'm just not so sure about it.
I just want to jump in and ask a question. Based on what you can see, and thank God we've gotten to a point where, a show like Ancient Aliens, and again, I would say kudos to them. I had a chance a long time ago to talk to, the person that's the head decision maker of the show, and I was really impressed because, she knows that they're engaging in a subject, and this again was a couple of years ago, that it is quite controversial and challenging. So the research needed to be really sound. So it's so enlightening and positive to hear the level of quality that they put into actually doing the research. So again, that's good news, I think, to help educate people more in the mainstream based on what you can see, because you have more and more people that are reporting contact, and you have more and more people that are, I think, a little bit braver to talk about some of their contact experiences. What do you see based on all of your world travels? Because each culture is different in terms of how they manage and handle the contact experience, right? So the United States is very different, especially in certain pockets of the U.S., versus how maybe they'd handle it in Brazil, right? Or, different pockets of the world. So what are you seeing? Are you seeing a trend? Are you seeing something that's consistent, that's coming up in terms of people that are having contact experiences now, and the information that's gleaned from those contact experiences?
Yeah, I mean, people are waiting for disclosure to happen. It seems to me it's happened for at least the past 10 or 15 years. It's not just a moment, it is actually a movement that is gaining momentum. And shows like Ancient Aliens certainly feed off of that energy that is brewing. And I think we do need a way for people that are modern contactees to be able to tell their story too. And I don't know if we'll ever get that in kind of a mainstream History Channel format, but to me, that would be the next step, and I'd certainly like to see something like that happen.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some of your work, and to me, you're probably one of the most inspiring and uplifting people, because again, you're talking about it. And again, I wouldn't just say from a spiritual standpoint, but you're talking about it, that the human body, that it can transcend, that the human body is really a perfect template as a reflection in a relationship to source energy. And that there's also devices that can assist. There's also other things that can assist. And you talk about, wormholes as being a connector to visit other different places in the universe. And, to me, this is the exciting part. This is the part that we can move to. Again, we talk about the ascension piece. And I think people, they hear the word ascension, and maybe sometimes, like there's a thought that it's inside ourselves, but also there's a somewhat of a perception that it's also outside, that there's a certain timing or certain elements that are going to happen on the earth. What's your sense? Do you believe that there's a timing aspect involved in this, in terms of, maybe the magnetic pole shift, or something that might be shifting as it relates to the Earth's space, in the universe or in the galactic center as we move to that? What's your sense of that in terms of where the Earth is positioned in the timing aspect of things?
Well, historically, and I wrote about this in my book, The Watchers, The Lost Secrets of Ascension, Resurrection, and Perfection, the concept of ascension, of a human scaling the ladder to heaven, transforming into a next level of vibration or manifestation, call it an angel, that's a typical ancient term, that really didn't come in vogue until about 200 years before the time of Jesus. Before that time, there was a perception that there was an impenetrable boundary separating Earth and Sol, our star system, from the rest of the cosmos. But around the time of Jesus, those 200 years before the time of Jesus, when especially the Essenes were operating in Alexandria, Egypt, and in Jerusalem, Qumran, Palestine, also Heliopolis, Egypt, they started creating stories about human superheroes who transformed with the help of angels. And they established the idea then that the boundary is in fact penetrable, that humans don't have to be invited to ascend, as was thought in the time before that, that anybody at any time can go through a process of self-realization, self-glorification, the scholars use the term angelomorphism, the transformation of a human into an angel, or apotheosis, the ascension or transformation from a human level to a divine level. They started teaching then that you can do it any time, irrespective of galactic alignments or certain special times in history. They started to imply, in fact, it is our right. But of course, it's religion that often separates us from that teaching. And for example, Christianity says that you can't ascend until the second coming takes place. And so that's putting a rule back on the boundary and keeping people in. And so to me, I'm just a touch leery about saying, well, there was a big talk about this in 2012, that there was going to be a mass ascension, December 21st, 2012. There were several promoters of the idea that there was going to be a massive ascension and people would spontaneously morph into their light body or rapture. And of course that, as far as I can tell, didn't happen. But there is often an idea that people think there are special times or that we're going to do this in mass, and that's certainly possible as well. As in the model of the Essenes of Qumran, they clearly experienced mass ascensions, but they also believed that they could control the timing of that and do it any time.
Got it. So that's, to me, is extremely important, because there does seem to be, people waiting and waiting and waiting, like waiting for this point in time, whatever that might be. And that doesn't, what I'm hearing you say is this, that doesn't mean that you can't work on this now and work on, your own connection to source, but actually, to travel to these different spaces and places. That, if anything, maybe that helps to strengthen this whole ascension process for everybody else, as opposed to, again, waiting for something else or, another group to say that they've gone and then come back, just to know that it is actually clearly within you to be able to do this.
Yeah, definitely. And I call a good chunk of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Gnostic Gospels, as they're referred to, I call those ascension simulation texts, because they would repeat these stories over and over and over again, as if they were trying to concretize it as a reality in their minds, knowing that if they know the pathway and can navigate the pathway in their imagination, that's going to make it real. We call that mind mapping today. And they, I think, spent a lot of their daily lives at these monasteries and these academies in meditation and going through these ascension simulation texts, very often with their high priest reading these stories to the people, so that they could go into deep levels of mind. This is something that I'm really trying to get a handle on, is the way they describe these texts, is being able to really take them at a deep level of mind, where it's almost as if they enter into a dreamlike state, where there are no boundaries of time and space in a dream. You can do anything you can imagine, you can make real in a dream. And it seems like these texts were designed to guide them into that kind of lucid dreaming state, where then they could interact with these other worldly beings, receive empowerments from them, teachings, so forth, and even go with them through the dream world. That's the real boundary that I think the most highly advanced of these extraterrestrials cross over. It's the boundary of imagination. They can come out of the dream world into our real world and then go back into it. I mean, imagine you have the most amazing lucid dream, and when you wake up, you're still in it. And for that matter, the beings and the people that you encountered in that dream are in this reality. This is what these texts describe these people being able to do. It's extraordinary.
And so that's what I've heard you say that before, that's really what we're talking about, is bringing heaven on earth.
Yeah, exactly. Because they were, again, if we're talking about the Essenes, they were obsessed with making this place more like the heavenly realm, literally bringing it down and through a sphere of consciousness that eventually could become like a sphere, usually portrayed as blue, that these beings can traverse the cosmos in. So it was, you're right, it was about bringing it here as opposed to going there, quote unquote.
Could you give us a
Right,
little
exactly.
sorry, Susan. Could you give us a little historical background on the Essenes, William? Perhaps where they originated from and why they came into Egypt.
The Essenes are they're really a tribe of people. They're considered to be primarily Jewish mystics, but they let Gentiles in, and Buddhists were part of the Essene community. They were founded around 250 BC in Alexandria, Egypt. What had happened is this is the period immediately following Alexander the Great. He had conquered the world in 330 BC. He dies in Babylon. He leaves controlling power to his generals, who are called the Ptolemies. The Ptolemies or Ptolemies then come into Alexandria, build the Library of Alexandria, this immense library with over 500,000 documents and scrolls in it, we're told. They take control of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. They build the Egyptian temples that we are most familiar with: Dendera, Esna, Kamumbo, Philae, Edfu. These are Ptolemaic temples. They are not Egyptian temples. They're Ptolemaic. They're built by Macedonian generals who are trying to duplicate the ancient Egyptian mysteries. And during this time, they create a new priesthood, a new god, literally, called Serapis. He's half human, half serpent. And the priests of Serapis are called the Therapeutae, the healers. They're known for their immense wisdom. They're known for wearing white robes. And they're involved with the Buddhists who have just come into Alexandria from India, who are bringing this new teaching about human resurrection, or what they call the rainbow body of light, to ancient Egypt. And it's during this time period that the Essenes are formed. And scholars tell us that they're an offshoot of the Therapeutae, which means they're part of this Alexandrian class of scholars and wisdom keepers that then move from Alexandria, Egypt. They go to Jerusalem, they go to Qumran, and they also go to Heliopolis in Egypt, where they build a duplicate of Solomon's temple. And this is where they start writing these incredible stories about Enoch, the first translated man. They start amplifying the story of the Watcher angels, the fallen angels who brought the craft or technology of human ascension to earth. And they start writing these stories that we know of as the Dead Sea Scrolls that talk about how humans can experience this resurrection or transformation into an angelic form. And their main superhero his name is Enoch, the sage or the wise one, who's taken up to heaven by the Archangel Michael, is transformed into the Archangel Metatron, and starts off this whole new tradition of human ascension or angelification. And this ultimately results in the priesthood or ministry of Jesus, whose primary mission as an Essene priest, as an Essene initiate, was to show us how to fully affect our human transformation or resurrection.
Oh, wow. The Dead Sea Scrolls, I think we covered a little bit last time when we covered the book you have on the Watchers. Isn't there like really long epochs of life terms that the people were living long epochs as well?
Well, these angels, are considered to be immortal beings. The angels that were living with the Essenes, and that's one of the real amazing revelations about the Dead Sea Scrolls, is how explicitly they talk about angels living with them and amongst them, and how their purpose was to show humans how to become angels themselves, so they can access the portal or gateway of the angels and travel into the cosmos as immortal beings.
Wow.
Can I jump in here, James?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So just spending a little bit of time on the ark, because it being a device, right? So we
Yes.
talk about, things that are internal. Like some people can have these amazing out-of-body experiences as connected to source or have extraterrestrial contact, and there's no arc, there's no device that's present. That's their being state in their connection to something else. Let's just put it that way. So if you can, and I know you've talked about this obviously, quite a bit before, but talking about what is the function of the ark? I mean, when you look at it, and if the ark was to be found and just, let's say, activated today, which probably would take a lot to activate it, I would imagine. But what do you see as the major function of it? Like, what if it was within our reach and grasp today? What do you see as being the major function? And I know it's a little bit of a loaded question, but I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, it's a great question too, and it's a very important one as well for many reasons, not the least of which that you have the big three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all seeking the Ark of the Covenant in order to fulfill prophecies. And this is why it's important to really get a clear perception on what the Ark of the Covenant is. And there's basically two schools of thought. One, you have the kind of the traditional Indiana Jones version of the story that says it's a golden box, could be a weapon system, could be radioactive, might be a communications device. Either way, they're describing it as a simple golden box that has extraordinary power. I think this is probably the Graham Hancock version of the story as well. And if you follow that axis, they're going to take you to maybe Ethiopia, United States Capitol, other places, locations are mentioned as locations where the Ark of the Covenant might perhaps be found. But scholars, specialists in Israelite symbolism know that that is not the Ark, the real Ark of the Covenant. That's referred to as the decoy Ark. That gets people all running over here, and it protects the real innermost secrets of the Ark. Israelite scholars know that the Ark of the Covenant is the throne of Yahweh. The Jewish term for it is the Merkabah throne. It's a throne chariot. It's a device upon which the Israelite God, Yahweh, would manifest as a luminous, humanoid, rainbow-like figure. And in fact, humans were able to access this throne, sit on this throne, and be transformed into the same form as Yahweh instantly. So this is something completely different than what Indiana Jones is looking for. We're talking about a device that is a Stargate device. It's a dematerialization type of a device. It's a connecting link between Earth and heaven, because there's one of these devices on Earth and another is located in the heavenly realm they identify as Sion. So the two are connected.
Sender and a receiver, almost.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the thing about it is that when you get into this level of understanding about the Ark of the Covenant, as is well established in the scholarly texts, they will tell you pretty straight up that the Ark of the Covenant is a device. And you have to peel away the layers of the meaning of the word device. A device is a tool, it's an appliance, it's a technology, but it's also a sign and it's a symbol. And what you are led to believe is that the Ark of the Covenant is in fact a symbol that is created in our consciousness. That when, and this comes from the story of Bezalel, who was the Israelite craftsman who manufactured or made the Ark of the Covenant for Moses. Before he made the Ark, he was given all the wisdom of the universe. Now, why do you need all the wisdom of the universe to make a simple golden box? You don't. He already has the skill set to do that. There's something else going on here. And he's also given a pattern or a blueprint for the construction of the ark. And that pattern is given in his consciousness, and he makes the ark in his consciousness. And this is what becomes key, because when you fully open the Ark of the Covenant, when you take that golden box and lift the lid on it, you see other tools are within that box. There is the rod of enlightenment. There's the flask of manna or star food. There's a jar containing a resurrection oil called chrism that dissolves the body into light. There are 2 tablets referred to as the tablets of the law or the tablets of destiny. This is a kit of tools that is begging to be assembled. And that's what I did in my work, following the path of these scholars. If we want to apply this kit to our body, which we're encouraged to do, we recognize that the golden box that's our lower chakra system, the lower energy centers of our body. The rod of Aaron is our spinal cord. The 2 tablets, the tablets of destiny, are the 2 hemispheres of our brain. And when we assemble this kit within ourselves, we recognize that our body is a device that is capable of secreting this powerful oil they call chrism that can dissolve our body into light, specifically rainbow-colored light, just like the ancient deities, and we can become one of those beings and then travel through the conduit that is opened by this device. That's the process as I see it. It's not a weapon. It's not radioactive. It's not a communications device. It's a throne chariot. It's a way for us to transform our bodies to match the frequency of these angelic beings and travel the cosmos.
Thank you for that. Would you say that there could have been more than one ark present on Earth? That we talk about the one, but at one point, was there more than one? And then let's say one is maybe off, or a couple are off in different spaces and places in our universe right now?
I know there's at least 2 because the Bible says so. There's one of these on earth and one on heaven. As we just talked, there's a sender and a receiver, so there's at least 2. And a recently translated text said that the watcher angels took the ark off the planet. So it may or may not be on the planet. But the reason why I believe that there's more than one has to do with the clothing that was worn by the high priest when he operated the Ark of the Covenant. The Bible is explicit that when the high priest enters the most holy place, this golden cube-shaped room, he is wearing the crown of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the belt of truth, the sandals of peace. He's wearing other items that prepare him for entering into this space. The Essenes are named after the breastplate, which was called the Essen, which means the breastplate of righteousness or the breastplate of perfection or wholeness. And in the Essene text, they are absolutely clear. There are more than one Essenes that wear this garment. And that would suggest to me that there must be more than one Ark of the Covenant too, because all of these symbols may well exist out here. There could be a breastplate of righteousness with 12 stones that radiate like a rainbow hidden somewhere in Jerusalem. But it's more probable, and in my opinion, that the crown of salvation is our activated consciousness. The breastplate of righteousness is our activated heart chakra. The belt of truth is exactly what it says it is. It's a belt of truth. And the sandals of peace represent a consciousness, a way that these people walked the planet. And these therefore then become psycho-spiritual attributes that we can develop from within, not something we're going to look for out here. So chances are, if you're thinking the Ark of the Covenant is a golden box in Ethiopia, you are not looking to activate your heart chakra, your crown chakra, and become a fully manifested, a whole or complete being. And that's the difference between the 2 levels of understanding about the Ark.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
It's almost like we're describing an ancient spiritual technology. Whether that's off-planet or not remains to be seen.
It's an ancient alien spiritual technology, and that is my pitch for season 9 of Ancient Aliens, is that we've got to get into the ancient alien spiritual technology, because there's as much of that as there is evidence of flying saucers and other things like that.
It's almost very hard to differentiate between extraterrestrial beings and spiritual beings. Is there any difference really?
Well, no, as a matter of fact. I mean, because scientifically, we're describing type 4 beings on the Kardashev scale. Non-material beings, they have celestial flesh. This is the term they use in the spiritual text. There's two kinds of flesh. There's the earthly flesh, like this, and their flesh. It's a celestial flesh. It's a non-material flesh. And that is, to me, that's the body of the most advanced of these extraterrestrials. Anybody else that's coming here that is flying around, let's say, in a spaceship, they're just maybe 20 years in advance of where we're at right now. And the
And
disconnect. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, and I'll ask a question afterwards. Keep going. Thank you.
I mean, when you cut your teeth on Von Daniken and Sitchin and this type of work, as I have, I mean, these are the guys that plowed their way through all of this. But they said that these guys have been coming here at least 250,000 years in spaceships. And think about where we were 250,000 years ago. Think about where humanity is going to be 250 years from now. There's no comparison. So what they ask you to believe is that the Anunnaki came here 450,000 years ago in Sitchin's number, a couple 100,000 years ago, maybe in Von Daniken's term, and they have not evolved one bit since then. Not one bit. That doesn't make any sense to me. And it tells me that they must have been coming here in some other form or fashion, or that the beings that are coming here in maybe flying saucers are just the lesser evolved ones.
I was going to say that there's, you've got astral beings, right? You've got astral beings that, maybe fourth dimensional beings, and then you've got beings that come that are more translucent, bioluminescent, that come in a rainbow ship. Very different than beings that are maybe more physical matter, right?
Right.
And that come in more of a ship that's like a steel gray, like some type of a metal. I wouldn't know
Right.
what to define it as, but when people talk about extraterrestrials, it's like there is a wide range and spectrum of what those beings are, what their relationship to us is individually, and also, from a humanity standpoint, and what that feeling is as it relates to a positive evolution, or, maybe something that's a little bit more self-serving.
Absolutely. And if I had to make an assessment or come to a conclusion, I'd say that the ones that are flying around in this flying saucers, those are robots. They are not organic. Whereas the other beings that have the celestial flesh are organic, and they can take on human bodies. They can manifest flesh and blood human bodies and phase back and forth between the vibrations. So, I mean, I think we're really starting to understand this with where we're at right now is in terms of going into space, that it's a lot more practical to send robots than it is to send flesh and blood. Even the Bible says flesh and blood can't inherit the kingdom of heaven. There is clearly a boundary. NASA is running up against this boundary now. We call it the Van Allen belt. And we're having to design ways for humans to live in space, because that is not a natural habitat for flesh and blood. And that means that we're going to have to go into space in a different form. And this is the whole power pack behind transhumanism, meshing our flesh with technology, because our body is only capable of assimilating 21 of the elements on the periodic table of elements. That doesn't bode well if you start going out into space and you're trying to harvest asteroids or enter into other worlds. We need a capability of being able to interface with a wider degree of elements on the periodic table, and that's what a transhuman body would give us. And this is, again, the driver behind transhumanism. It doesn't have to do with living here on Earth so much as it does creating a body that can go live in space.
Perhaps I just want to say, maybe in a technological and a futurist perspective, William, could we just maybe expand on that? It's not just we're all going to meditate and we're all going to evolve into light bodies. There may be a chance for us to use some technology, DNA, genetics, stuff like that. Maybe a mix of both.
I absolutely am going along with you, James. I mean, and my thinking has evolved on this. I've been covering the transhuman connection since 2003, and back then, there's no way I would have been even remotely open-minded about meshing our flesh with technology. But more and more, I understand that that the question really comes down to if the person believes spirit can infuse technology, can love be infused in technology. If you believe that that's possible, then I say go ahead and mesh our flesh with technology. If you don't believe that's possible, then you probably don't want to do that. But it seems as if we're on a rendezvous here with Silicon Valley, and the transformation of the human body is imminent. And part of what I'm trying to do with my book, The Singularity is Near, is just help people to understand the issues here. This is what's going on, get you up to speed on how fast this technology is accelerating, and then get into the moral and philosophical aspect of it, of us deciding, are we going to cross over that barrier? Are we going to start meshing our flesh with technology?
Well, it doesn't that, forgive me for saying this, but I have to, doesn't that seem like a shortcut, though? It's a shortcut to not being able to, work with one's spirituality in connection to Source?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's definitely a shortcut. But the intention behind it is to perfect the body, okay? Mm-hmm. That's mm-hmm. the ultimate terminology. And the analogy I like to make here, the way I think about this, is that in the 14th century, an anonymous Italian inventor came up with a new invention that revolutionized humanity, revolutionized everything. It was the game changer. And that invention was eyeglasses. And it was so controversial that church was opposed to it. And the reason why was because with the invention of eyeglasses came an idea. That is, you could improve what God created for you. You can take a shortcut. You can take evolution in your own hands and choose to put a pair of eyeglasses on and improve yourself. Before that, the church's position was, if God wanted you to have a decent set of eyes, he would have given them to you. Mm-hmm. So, who are you to believe that you can improve yourself? Well, we don't think like that anymore. We gladly accept eyeglasses, prosthetics, heart transplants, organ transplants. We're now, report yesterday, we've grown a fully functioning human brain, okay? So this acceleration is here, and it is about shortcuts. And there will definitely be individual crisis moments that are coming very soon for people, whether or not they are going to adapt this technology into their body, maybe on the idea that it'll make them more competitive, it'll make them healthier. And each of us has to decide, where do we draw the line? If it's a question of life and death for you, or let's say your child, between having an artificial heart or a cloned organ, what choice are you going to make? And ultimately, this is going to be an elective kind of thing where people will be able to augment their body, increase their intelligence many times, increase their longevity many times, and in so doing, perhaps give them an opportunity to hang around a little longer to be able to make that spiritual connection. And the reason why, let me just say this, just real quick. The reason why I am a little bit more accepting of the technology than I was at first is, during my journey of exploration and talking about this with people, I once had a woman call me and she said, I understand what you're talking about the body being able to be dissolved into light, the rainbow body. And she says, I'm all for that. That's really great. But then you hammered on about people getting technology not being able to do that, right? And I said, yeah, I generally agree with that. I would discourage people from enmeshing their flesh with technology if they want to attain their rainbow body. And she said, so what you're telling me is that my son, who has several artificial limbs, cannot ascend. And I said, no, that's not what I meant to say. But that, of course, was what I was saying. And I had to go back and reevaluate that. And it ultimately came back to me to this idea that each of us has to decide, do we believe that we can ultimately infuse this technology with spirit and love? And if we do, then yeah, absolutely, someone with artificial limbs can transmute that element into light and ascend.
Sure. So it then goes back to about the consciousness and the technology. It
Yes.
goes back to what is that level of consciousness as it relates to the technology. And it doesn't have to be such a far off concept. It's almost like when someone's making you dinner and they're in a bad mood and they don't really want to, make you a great
Right.
dinner, and you eat it and it could look all perfect, but it doesn't taste so great. And, different when someone is full of love and they're making this dinner for you. And even if it doesn't have the perfect ingredients, you can taste that love inside.
Right. I mean, we know the Dalai Lama and other high lamas have been to Silicon Valley. They've had their brainwaves recorded, all in the hopes that you'll be able to maybe get an implant that will keep you at that bodhisattva level at all times. Where's the line? It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, if I do augment my brain, my neocortex, and have this vibration in me, it is an artificial shortcut. I didn't have to go meditate for 40 years to learn to do that. I just, by the benefit of this technology, I've been given the grace to be able to experience this level of consciousness. And my intention would be to serve my community by embodying this consciousness. So
Sure. Because that would be the output of that. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but there's going to be many examples where we're like, that's just evil, but people need to get into the conversation. We're running behind in terms of people's understanding of how quickly this technology is coming and the ultimate ramifications of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
William, I just want to mention the tour you have coming up in Egypt. I know you do a lot of work in Egypt, and they're quite engaging tours that you do. You maybe you could just tell about some of the spiritual experiences you've had there, because they've been quite revelatory as well. I know you love the place with your heart and your soul, and I know your wife Claire is deeply involved with you on this journey too. So tell just people about the Stargate tour that you're doing in Egypt. It's coming up in October. Mention that a little bit, and I know you have another exciting tour that you want to give a mention on too.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thank you. Yeah, we'll be we're doing my 14th or 15th Stargate Egypt tour, October 27th through November 9th. We focus on the ascension teachings of ancient Egypt. We, of course, explore the many layers of ancient history there, the incredible temples and the Osirian and the Valley Temple and others, and look at it as evidence of a pre-flood civilization. But we also know that the temples themselves are books in stone that contain the ultimate secrets of human transcendence and transformation. And so that's what we're trying to open our eyes to as we're going through the temples. And where we can, we meditate, we chant, we connect on as many levels as we possibly can. And it's an extraordinary experience, because each time we go is different, because the group that we're with tends to amplify certain areas, or they bring a certain skill set. And that's what makes it really exciting for us to return again and again.
And you have a Turkey tour. You're going to do a Turkey tour next year? I'm really excited
Yes,
about
we
this
are.
one. I'm really excited about this
we are
one.
too. We are too. Thank you. Yeah. This is going to be in April 13th through the 27th. It's called Stargate Turkey, Gateways to Ascension. And part of what we're going to the oldest Stargate in the world, Göbekli Tepe. Hello. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that right off the bat, right?
Wow.
But we're also tracking that crossover of the Christian mysteries, especially the esoteric Christian mysteries, into Turkey, into Byzantium, Constantinople, and going to places like Ephesus, which was the cradle of Christianity, and another very important Essene center, by the way. So our tours are always themed with this idea that these cultures practiced and left for us the code of ascension. And that's what we're going back to recover and to try to bring it back to life and connect with it in any way possible.
Yeah, you know, I think it's not just lost knowledge with history and mystery. There's lost knowledge of spirituality there too, Henry. Sorry, William. And I know that's what you bring through in your research and your work. And I just love that about you. I commend you on that, because a lot of people can just get bogged down and they want to just, you know, excite themselves with a bit of mystery, and you can easily just skip over the important stuff. So.
Well, that's fine. You know, the mystery's great. But then you want to make sure that they're leading you into the mysteries, right? I mean, these clues and the things that excite you are just the beginning of, it's like we're E.T. following the Reese's Pieces, right? And you got to keep following the pieces in order to get to E.T. And that's what we're ultimately aiming for.
Sure. Well, today's author is William Henry, and you can check out his website, williamhenry.net. Susan, will you have any final closing comments?
I just wanted to, I could ask you questions all day long. I think I should probably just go on one of these tours. I can only imagine, just a comment, I can only imagine what some of the people say during their experiences and after these tours with you, because, you know, to me, you represent an individual who's quite tapped in to, you know, their higher self, and putting that alongside these really remarkable places around the globe, I just think it has to be a really remarkable experience. So thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, my pleasure. Look, it's a total honor and a pleasure. We went to Italy to see the Shroud of Turin in May of 2015, and 20 of the 22 people that went with us had been on at least 2 tours with us before. And so we take that as a real compliment. It says we're doing something right, and we just are, you know, just thrilled and honored to be able to keep doing it and serving people this way, because they're more than just holidays, and it goes beyond sightseeing when you're with Claire and I. It's really about making that connection and remembering who we are. And that's why we just love doing this.
Sure. Well, today's author is William Henry. Get over to williamhenry.net. Check out his articles, his blog. There's so much fascinating information here. Of course, he has a free ebook there as well, which you can get a copy of. William, I really thank you for your time today. Great to see you again.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. You too, James. Thank you. Thank you, Susan, so much.
Aloha. Thank you.
Bye-bye.